Hello everyone, NoahNovels here, and welcome back to my Revue Starlight episode discussion and analysis series. In today's video, I will be going over episode 8 of the anime titled Toward the Light. With that being said, let's begin talking about the episode. The episode starts with Hikari talking about the story of Starlight, while a child version of herself and Karen watches a recreation of it with the characters of the show, including the present versions of herself and Karen. As Hikari further reflects on how she and Karen are captivated by the art of theater and the performance of Starlight specifically, the child version of Karen grabs Hikari's hand. And just as how Flora and Claire said they should go towards that star in the story of Starlight, Hikari says that she and Karen too should go to that stage, to that shining star. Then the opening plays. After the opening, the episode picks up with Hikari in London, before the start of the main story in episode 1. If you can put aside how terrifyingly messy Hikari's room is, I am now starting to see why Mihiru was so strict with her in episode 6, it seems Hikari is doing pretty well for herself. As we see her getting ready for the day ahead of her, we hear Karen narrating a letter she sent to Hikari, talking about the weather, how well the 99th class's performance of Starlight went, how she's aiming to play Flora in the next production, and how it would be great if Hikari could come to watch her perform if and when that happens. She caps things off by saying she's doing her best to fulfill the promise the two of them made, and that Hikari needs to as well, without pushing herself too far, of course. One thing I really love about this scene is its parallel to the first episode. This actually also applies to the beginning of this episode, as episode 1 also starts with a moment reflecting on the story of Starlight. But what I'm talking about here is that as Karen is wrapping things up in her letter, we see Hikari leave her room, only to return a few minutes later as she had forgotten to put on her hairpin, just as how Karen returned to her and Mihiru's room after leaving to put her hairpin on. As we see that all too familiar picture of Hikari and Karen as children, Hikari grabs her hairpin that was lying in front of it and puts it on, smiling as she leaves to start her day. As Hikari walks throughout London towards her school, she responds to Karen in her head, thanking her for all the letters she has sent her. She makes it a point to assure Karen that she is still working towards their goal of performing Starlight together, and she's doing so by attending the Royal Academy of Theatrical Actors, which I'm going to take a wild guess and say is based off the real-life Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. Mom, can we have the Takarazuka Music School and Royal Academy of Dramatic Art? No, we have the Takarazuka Music School and Royal Academy of Dramatic Art at home. Before moving on, I just really quickly want to say how beautiful the few shots we get of Hikari walking throughout London are. I don't know, something about the colors and the lighting, and when that's matched with the really uplifting background music, it gives off the same enthusiasm and passion that Hikari is showing through her inner monologue. Watching this scene just makes me feel so happy and inspired. Maybe, just maybe, I will do my taxes this year. I think that's the real takeaway from this series overall now that I think about it. In case I'm mistaken though, let's keep talking about the episode. Hikari goes on to talk about the Royal Academy of Theatrical Actors, talking about how it's a school that specializes in studying every aspect of theater. As we see her go throughout her classes and practice throughout the day, she continues talking about how the school offers everything, from the latest theater arts theories all the way to actual stage production, all being taught by theater veterans and professionals. She talks about her classmates, all from different countries, and how they're all working together towards the same goal and dream of becoming stars. I am also really quickly going to interrupt the episode discussion to give a brief theory or thought about something that could come up in the Revue Starlight visual novel. We already know that Judy Knightley, one of Hikari's classmates who will become more relevant as the episode goes on, will play a role in the upcoming Revue Starlight El Dorado visual novel. That being said, if this shot from this scene is any indication, it seems that Hikari was friends with her other classmates as well. And if Judy Knightley is coming back, why can't they? I think exploring some of the connections or friendships Hikari made in London and how they felt when she left for Japan would be really interesting. I'm not saying for sure that'll happen, but it would be interesting to learn more about that period of her life. Also, they just look like a fun bunch. Let's flesh out as many of these random characters as possible, so I don't have to face the fear of inevitably running out of Revue Starlight stuff to talk about. And sadly, the Revue Starlight visual novel did not release in November of last year like I thought it was going to, which is a little painful. But hey, it gives me more time to upload these videos until its release. Sorry for the interruption. That little blurb about the visual novel isn't really enough to justify its own video, and since Judy is in this episode of course, it felt like an appropriate thing to bring up. Moving on. The scene ends with Hikari determined to become even better in her theatrical pursuits. She can't just settle for regular roles and performances. She needs to become a stage girl who can stand atop her promised stage with Karen. As she looks at the numerous amount of letters Karen has sent her and the picture of her and Karen as children, we transition to a scene from their childhood. But before going into that scene, I just want to briefly talk about something else. One thing I love about the episode up until this point is how it poses a question or mini mystery to we the viewers. I think it's quite obvious from watching the scenes we've just gone through, but this isn't the same Hikari we meet in episode 1 of the anime. She seems so energetic, happy, and just full of life, not detached and void of emotion like she is for the first few episodes of the show. I mean, just go back to that shot earlier of her and her classmates. Look how happy she is holding that costume. Hikari's optimistic and determined inner monologue, matched with the upbeat music and overall scene direction, makes the viewers wonder, well, just what exactly happens to her that makes her the way she is at the beginning of the show? And that's a mystery for the rest of this episode to answer. Going back to Hikari and Karen as children, we see a sobbing Karen deal with the fact that Hikari is moving away to London as best as she can. Karen continues to sob as she says she can't perform Starlight on her own, which has Hikari come to the decision that she can't return to Japan until she becomes a star. Karen asks if they can at least call each other, to which Hikari says no, but Karen's desperate and honestly heartbreaking face full of tears does convince Hikari to at least let Karen send her letters, on the condition that Hikari doesn't have to write anything back. This seems to cheer Karen up a bit, and not unlike the scene towards the end of episode 4 where Karen reaches out her hand towards Hikari on top of the slide in front of Tokyo Tower, Hikari reaches her hand out towards Karen on that same slide, and so the promise that would drive these two stage girls for years to come is born. Although Hikari in this moment is confident that it's not a promise. Rather, it's fate, something that'll come back in just a bit. As the next scene shows the two of them going through the souvenir shop and picking out their iconic hairpins, Hikari thinks back to how that promise of separation and no contact was more for herself than it was for Karen, because if they hadn't completely parted from one another, Hikari wouldn't be able to focus on becoming a better stage girl as she would just want to see Karen. As we cut back to the present of this episode, Hikari looks at her hairpin as she's filled with a sense of determination, certain that the two of them will reunite under the spotlight of the stage as stars. And that's why she needs to keep pushing herself and reaching greater heights. And what better way for a stage girl to do that than in the Revue auditions? And perhaps that's why as Hikari is practicing, that all too familiar ringtone begins to play. The next scene shows us an underground theater area, different than the stage we've become accustomed to underneath Saisho, but still familiar with its haunting and elegant presence. And in a shot very similar to Karen's first meeting with the giraffe in episode 1, Hikari meets the giraffe for herself as he begins explaining the nature of the Revues. As the giraffe explains that the one who presents us the most dazzling of Revues will receive a heavenly tiara and the title of top star, we see one of the participants of the Revue idly spinning her hat in her hand. Hikari questions what the top star is supposed to mean, and that's when the giraffe says that the top star is she who stands atop the stage of fate. And with that single word, fate, Hikari's fate was sealed. I mean, this is the stage of fate. Fate. The thing binding Hikari and Karen's destiny to perform Starlight together. When presented with the opportunity to stand upon a stage that embodies the very thing she proclaimed will make it so her and Karen can perform Starlight together, how could she say no? And so, Hikari joins the Revue auditions of the Royal Academy of Theatrical Actors for a chance to stand upon that eternal stage. And when she first stands upon the underground theater stage, something that's immediately noticeable is her weapon. Instead of the dagger we've seen her use in the show up to this point, she is currently wielding a sword, another jarring difference to how Hikari is from the start of the show. And as Hikari rushes into her first Revue audition, she promises to Karen that she is waiting for her on the stage of fate. We get a little mini montage of Hikari winning various auditions and climbing the ranks of the Revues until we see her lose and fall into second place, defeated by none other than the stage girl we saw earlier as the giraffe was explaining the Revues to Hikari, her classmate, Judy Knightley. Also, this isn't important to the episode, but I just really like Judy's Revue design and I can't wait to eventually see more of her in the visual novel. And I don't know why, but in this specific shot where she's smugly looking down on Hikari and doing that little pose with her hat, I can't not think of Jotaro Kujo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 4 specifically. I mean, it's gotta be the hat, right? Please tell me I'm not crazy for imagining this. But anyways, As Hikari's losing second place status is set in stone, the giraffe announces that the auditions are over. The screen cuts to black and the next scene is Hikari waking up the day after. But something's off about this scene. Gone is the upbeat and whimsical music. Gone is Hikari's enthusiasm and energy for the day ahead of her. Gone are the various shots of London as Hikari makes her way to school. And replacing all these things is a feeling of emptiness. As Judy seems to be thriving at school more than ever before, something her classmates even take note of, Hikari absent-mindedly wonders what those Revue auditions were even all about. Before she, or even we the viewers, can come to an answer, however, we cut to a school production that both Hikari and Judy are in. But as Hikari sits upon the throne of her character in the play, all she can do is wonder what's happened to her. She's acting on the stage, something that means everything to her, and yet she feels nothing. No nervousness from performing in front of a crowd. No desire to sing. No passion. All she can manage to do is to sadly look down on Judy as she continues to monologue. As the scene of the play transitions to that of a fiery hellscape, Hikari realizes all the shine she feels as a stage girl, it's gone. She lost it. The arm holding her sword starts to tremble, and instead of continuing the scene, the weight of her weapon and the realization she's lost her passion for theater is too much for her to bear as she drops her arm. She starts to hyperventilate, the stage lights go out, and the show is brought to an abrupt stop. I just really quickly want to point out how damn haunting this shot here is when Hikari realizes what she's lost. It's a terrifying, fiery hellscape, and the way Judy is standing from an elevated position looking down at Hikari with her sword pointed at her, as Hikari lies down on the ground looking up at Judy, and how this all mirrors their positions from when Hikari lost in the final Revue against her, it's amazing. And the outstretched hand in the background looming towards Hikari, almost as if it's stealing the very shine she's realized she's lost. Man, I love this shot. It's terrifying, stunning, and it perfectly embodies the despair and horror of Hikari's situation. The worst thing that could happen to someone passionate about creative or artistic hobbies, actually just the worst thing that can happen to somebody interested in any sort of hobby or dream, is losing that spark for said thing. There's nothing worse than feeling nothing while doing something that you love. I've been there, and it is genuinely awful. In the next scene, Hikari continues to ponder over what it is exactly that she's lost and what's happened to her as she walks into what I'm pretty sure is a museum at night. As she wanders the empty and dark museum, a somber reflection of herself, she recalls that she once had a purpose propelling her forward, but it's a purpose she can no longer remember. As Hikari sits down, she wonders why she ever decided to pursue theater going and attend the Royal Academy of Theatrical Actors, and after some reflection, she remembers. It was the promise between herself and Karen, and the moment she does remember, we get a close-up shot of tears rolling down her face. For the most part in this scene, starting with Hikari getting to the museum, all the shots have been wide shots. This did a great job at further showing just how alone and void of purpose Hikari felt, by obscuring her face and having her appear small with wider angles, which was further helped by the size of the stuff in the background. And even when she was sitting down, the distance between herself and the camera made it so her face would still be obscured either by the distance itself, the angle of her head, or the position of the camera, such as this shot of her from behind when she first starts to remember the promise between herself and Karen. The only time in this museum area we get a good look at Hikari's face before she remembers her promise to Karen is this quick medium close-up of her continuing to walk before she is once again obscured by a column, which transitions to the next wider shot of her sitting at a bench. And as we're about to see in a few moments, Hikari's face is not the only thing the clever shot composition and odd angles were hiding from the viewers in this bench area Hikari stopped at. There's just a lot of really cool shots and clever direction in this episode, and I love visual storytelling like that, so apologies if me geeking out and talking about all of it is a bit of a pace breaker. Really, every episode has stuff like that, but some of the shots and moments from this episode specifically live in my head rent-free, maybe because of this episode's importance to fully fleshing out Hikari's story, and bringing everything up to this point full circle in a beautiful and emotional way. After Hikari remembers her promise with Karen, she wonders how she could have forgotten something so precious to her in the first place, and when she remembers the Revue auditions she took part in, we cut to a wide shot showing what's been behind Hikari the moment she got to this bench seating area. And I don't think I need to say what the skeleton that's been looming over Hikari all this time brings to mind. Refusing to go on like this, Hikari tries to call the giraffe to no avail, at least at first. It's only after she stands up in defiance do we hear that familiar ringtone once again, and we linger on the shadow cast by the skeleton behind Hikari before moving on to the next scene set in the underground theater area. Hikari confronts the giraffe, reciting his usual description of the Revue auditions back at him, but with her own added knowledge as a loser of the Revues, that losing results in the loss of the most precious thing for any performer and stage girl, their shine. Something the giraffe conveniently leaves out whenever he talks about the Revues. The giraffe explains that the birth of the top star requires a certain amount of fuel, which of course is the shine taken away from the losers of the auditions. And this is the ugly truth that Revue Starlight has been hiding. Throughout the entire show up to this point, we the viewers have watched the stage girls of Saisho, who are all so passionate and in love with the art of theater, ruthlessly try to one-up and defeat each other in this fierce competition. Sure, it's been a beautiful spectacle to watch, and sure, each audition turned into something more, mostly thanks to Karen helping everyone with their issues and insecurities. But at the end of the day, these were still all part of a competition for the title of the top star, a position that only one person can supposedly have. Regardless of how Juna was able to get over her unhealthy fear of failure, regardless of how Mahiru was able to recognize her own self-worth, regardless of the restored relationship between Karuko and Futaba, regardless of the camaraderie all the stage girls had with one another during each audition, their goal is to defeat their opponent and come out on top. And if that's not what it's like to try and be successful in creative and artistic pursuits in real life, I don't know what is. We live in a world where obviously we need money to survive, and quite a good chunk of money at that. So of course, it stands to reason that if you want to make a lot of money, you have to work a lot of hours. But what if you want to be an actor, or an artist, or a writer, or a singer? Well, you have to turn your passion into your job. There's a lot of people in the world who all want to be successful in the same industry as you, and there's only so much opportunity to go around. So if you want any chance to pursue what you love to do while still, making enough to live, it turns into a competition, not unlike the Revues. You can still, of course, be friends with other people who share the same interests as you. You can still, of course, be happy and supportive of them when they land successful opportunities. You can still, of course, share your passion with each other and even work together. But any industry, retail, education, transportation, or more artistic industries like acting, they're all competitions. Competitions either between individuals trying to advance in their careers, or amongst companies trying to take business away from one another to make more profit. No matter how many friends or colleagues you make along the way, it's yourself you have to look out for at the end of the day. Friendly competition is still just that. Competition. But what happens when the thing you love to do is turned into a competitive job? When instead of looking forward to expressing yourself every day through your work, you have to think about what specifically to do to advance in your career, even if it means doing something you don't particularly care for. Do you still keep that excited and passionate energy you had when you were freely pursuing your passion? Or does the thing you love become a chore that makes you feel nothing? And that's what Revue Starlight's been about all this time with these auditions. To pursue what you love as a viable career is to turn your passion into a competition, and what happens when you do that is exactly what happened to Hikari. You lose your shine, or passion, or motivation, or whatever you want to call it. Instead of eagerly looking forward to pursuing and owning your craft, you're left with a sense of emptiness and unfulfillment, made even worse by the fact that you know that doing this is something that used to bring you joy. Revue Starlight is a show that demonstrates both the beauty but also the hardships of pursuing what you love to do. And as someone who went through a period of looking at this channel as more of a business venture instead of a place where I can express my thoughts on visual novels and other media I like, I can say this show represents the complicated feelings and struggles of pursuing your passions extremely well. Before moving on, there's just a couple of quick things I want to point out. This shot from earlier in the episode, when Hikari realizes she's lost her shine, kind of has an interesting new meaning now that we know what the Revue auditions did to her. The ominous hand in the background that looks like it's being summoned forward by Judy, who is pointing her sword towards Hikari, representing how Judy quite literally stole Hikari's shine by defeating her in the auditions. And Hikari's loss of her shine also kind of answers the question I posed about her towards the beginning of this video. Why the Hikari we first meet in episode 1 of Revue Starlight is so different from the Hikari we've been following in this episode. While Hikari did have enough shine to remember her promise and the Revue auditions, I have to imagine that losing so much of her shine still took its toll on her. I mean, clearly it did, as we saw how sluggish and lifeless she seemed after she lost in the auditions. So there's a good chance that by episode 1, she's still dealing with the effects of losing all that shine because of the auditions. Pair that also with her desperation to keep Karen away from the Revues so she doesn't risk losing her shine, and you have yourself one detached and cold-feeling Hikari for 3 episodes. Getting back to the episode at hand, the giraffe says he couldn't have predicted Hikari would still have so much shine remaining, and so, he will give her one more chance to participate in the Revue auditions, but this time, in Japan. Hikari questions why she's being given a second chance, to which the giraffe responds by saying he wants to see what will happen on the unpredictable stage featuring the stage girl who has lost it all. Also, I love how the giraffe's posture, along with the framing of the scene itself, makes him look similar to Tokyo Tower as he looms over Hikari. Being confronted by this towering presence resembling the symbol of her and Karen's promise to one another, Hikari agrees to once again participate in the Revue auditions. The giraffe begins to descend so he can start preparing things for Hikari's arrival, making note of how this means Hikari will go up against Nana, the stage girl who bends time to her will. Hikari tries to get more information out of the giraffe, but she is cut off by the curtains coming down, and with that, we are back in the present day of the show. The present day, which sees Hikari and Nana face off against each other in the 6th day of auditions, the Revue of Solitude. As the instrumentals to Recreate begins, Hikari introduces herself to the Revue stage with a mini monologue about herself and what we've seen her go through in this episode. The set of the stage appears around Hikari and Nana, and the battle between the stage girls commences. Real quickly, I just want to say how much I love the song to this Revue, Recreate. The beginning of it with its instrumentals feels so grand, beautiful, and exciting, which is very fitting for this important showdown between these two complex characters. And as we'll come to see, the song itself mirrors the story contained in this Revue quite well. And no surprise here, but Hikari and Nana's voice actresses, Suzuku Memori and Moeka Koizumi, do a fantastic job with this song, with special props to Suzuku Memori for her beautiful singing and hitting the emotional beats of Hikari's character in this Revue wonderfully. Hikari starts singing about her promise with Karen as she begins to fight against Nana, but Nana quickly takes the lead in both the song and the fight as Hikari struggles to get a good hit on her. Her former sword, now simply a short dagger no doubt due to her lost shine, makes it difficult for her to get in close to Nana, who can keep her at bay with her more long-range sword, meaning Hikari has to both skillfully dodge Nana's far-reaching attacks while still trying to get in close for a strike, and it doesn't go well. Nana herself even comments on how hard it must be to fight with such a short weapon, but she makes it a point to comfort Hikari, saying she won't have to worry about painful things anymore because she will keep her safe within her repeat performance. As Nana continues to sing about her plan to keep everyone safe, she strikes Hikari down to the ground and goes in for the finishing blow, only to be blocked by Hikari's dagger at the last second. As this happens, smoke machines activate and the set around Hikari and Nana transform to something similar to the fiery set of the school production, where Hikari realized she lost her shine earlier in the episode. A fitting backdrop for this moment, considering that a loss in this Revue could lead her down to a similar fate of emptiness and lost passion. It also helps to highlight how terrifying a force Nana is to be reckoned with, especially in this shot from Hikari's point of view, with Nana towering over her as she continues to talk about her repeat performance. The intensity and desperation to keep everyone happy in the past evident from her speech and facial expression. As Nana lands another blow on Hikari, the music begins to swell and we cut to a Revue battle between Karen and Claudine, with Claudine asking Karen what it is that motivates her. As Karen recovers from Claudine's strike and responds that it's her promise with Hikari that drives her forward, the music slows down as Nana approaches Hikari and ends up stopping on a pile of rubble, elevating her above Hikari and perfectly recreating the same shot with Judy and Hikari earlier in the episode. The ominous hand once again present and ready to steal Hikari's shine at any moment. Showing just how connected Karen and Hikari are, even when they are apart from one another, Nana also asks Hikari what it is that drives her to keep going forward. And of course, Hikari's answer is both Karen and fate. As Hikari shakily raises her dagger towards Nana, she begins to think about why she introduced Karen to the world of theater through Starlight. She thought it would be fun to brag a little bit to Karen and show her something different that not a lot of girls their age know about or are interested in. But what started out as a way to impress her friend turned into a shared passion for a beautiful art form, and the birth of the stage girl Hikari Kagura. And I think that's beautiful. It shows how even the simplest of ideas or moments in one's life can create such meaningful bonds or awaken some hidden passion you never even knew you had. The music once again picks up as Hikari looks towards Nana with determination, proclaiming that she will not lose again. We briefly cut back to the battle between Karen and Claudine, where Karen seems to be holding her own well, and Hikari begins to reflect on what she was thinking when she first entered the Revues of Saisho. Having already lost once in the auditions, she refused to lose what was keeping her bound to her love of theater, her promise with Karen. And so, the stage girl who had lost it all would once again enter the world of the Revues, this time defeating all her opponents and taking the title of top star for herself. And so long as she kept Karen away from the Revue auditions, she wouldn't risk stealing Karen's shine and the two could fulfill their promise, or rather their fate. We're taken back to the Revue of Passion from episode 1 as Hikari reflects on this, and she starts singing in the song again. And I don't know, something about seeing the very first Revue in the beautiful journey that is Revue Starlight, but now through the lens of Hikari and with the emotional masterpiece that is Recreate playing in the background, it gets me to tear up. Something that this show does very easily to me, but something I still want to point out. Hikari's only plan to fulfill her promise with Karen, however, as we all know, is interrupted by none other than Karen herself. Despite the cruel nature of the auditions, designed to steal everyone's precious shine, Karen jumped headfirst into the world of the Revues to help her childhood friend. Despite Hikari's desperation to keep Karen away, it was ironically enough Hikari's reappearance and entry into the Saisho auditions that reawakened Karen's passion and led to Karen's rebirth. The way these two have influenced each other throughout their lives, Karen's letters and promise motivating Hikari while she was in London, and Hikari's re-arrival helping Karen reignite her passion and motivation for theater? Man, I love it. They really are two connected by fate. After Karen jumps into the Revue of Passion, we cut back to the present where Nana continues to attack Hikari. While Hikari doesn't want to steal Karen's shine, if she doesn't win in this series of Revues, her shine will be stolen regardless. And that's why, even against the unstoppable Nana Daiba, even surrounded by flames reminiscent of when she first lost her shine, even with a weapon that makes landing any type of blow near impossible, Hikari continues to fight on top of this vast and hopeless stage. Nana once again lands a decisive strike on Hikari, but then the music slows down and Hikari remembers her conversation with Karen towards the end of episode 4, the scene where Karen reaches out her hand to Hikari and says they should win the auditions together. On the same slide where they made their promise to each other as children, Karen saved Hikari from her fears and doubts regarding participating in the Revues with one another, allowing them to finally rekindle their lost friendship properly and work together to be the best stage girls they can be, both in Saisho and in the Revue auditions. The instrumentals at this point have transitioned to sounding like something out of a music box, and I think that works so well with this scene. Not only is it fitting for the emotions Hikari is experiencing upon reflecting on this moment from episode 4, but it gives the whole scene a very childlike feel. I don't know, something about the music box style of this part of the song just exudes childlike innocence. And what better music could there be for two friends finally reconnecting at the same place where they made a promise as children that would change the course of their lives forever? It's beautiful, uplifting, and fitting, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. After Karen and Hikari look towards Tokyo Tower from the scene in episode 4, Hikari in the present thinks about how she never even considered the possibility of two being able to succeed in the auditions. I mean, the Revues have always been a cutthroat and ruthless competition up to this point, regardless of how beautiful the spectacle of it all has been. Why would that ever cross her mind? And yet, it's this hope from the optimistic and theater-loving stage girl that is Karen Aijo that gives Hikari the resolve to resist Nana's strength, even when she is inches away from being knocked off the building set piece that her and Nana are on. She pushes back against Nana, and the lighting immediately shifts. No longer are the flames red and oppressive waiting to devour her shine, but rather they're a cool blue not unlike the blue of Hikari's Revue outfit, or the blue of the aquariums that she made Karen go searching for her in episode 4. The spotlights above the two all shine a radiant blue that focuses on Hikari's dagger pointed towards the sky, and thanks to Hikari's reborn shine represented through these lights, her weapon is remade. It's still a dagger, but a more elegant one with a key difference that will be shown shortly. I like that Hikari's weapon doesn't simply revert to what it originally was during the Revue auditions in London, because that loss and defeat still happened and is a crucial part of who she is today. Continuing onward doesn't mean forgetting your past failures or mistakes, but rather pushing forward despite them. They're part of what makes us who we are. Just as how Hikari losing her shine in the original Revues in London and forgetting her promise to Karen is an important stepping stone to her eventual return to Karen's side at Saisho and in these auditions. She can't just go back to the way she was before, nor should she. But she can take meaning from all her hardships and be reborn once again to fight against Nana in this Revue of solitude, in hopes of fulfilling her promise with Karen. And that's exactly what she does as another Tokyo Tower, aside from the one that's already surrounding the two of them, crashes down and causes a tidal wave that snuffs out any remaining flames, and surrounds the two stage girls for the second and final act of their fight. The music once again swells once Hikari sings that her and Karen's dream will come to fruition. And this isn't important, but I love the shot of the giraffe just calmly observing what's happening as he's getting splashed with water. It's such a funny visual to me, even though I'm not sure why, but along with that, it does a good job of showing the scope and power of Hikari's newfound determination and reborn shine, reaching even the giraffe who most of the time is simply a faraway spectator. Hikari's gem on her remade dagger shines radiantly, and the music once again slows down as her and Nana begin to fight again, now completely surrounded by water. Hikari singing in this part of the song is so damn beautiful. I mean, it is for the entire song, but you can really feel the newfound passion and strength of Hikari through Suzuku Memori's powerful vocal performance. And before wrapping things up with this review, I do really briefly want to talk about how amazing the animation and choreography is. Every review up to this point has been fantastic, but the choreography for this fight between Hikari and Nana has been so damn good, with each movement and strike feeling heavy and impactful, especially in the next section as they fight in the water. Despite the grand nature of the stage they are fighting on, the fight between these two feels so raw, which is fitting for a battle between two people with completely different ideologies and goals. The stage girl who desperately wants to keep people trapped in the past, and the stage girl who wants to move forward into the future to fulfill her promise. Of course the battle between these two would be intense, and that intensity is brought out even more with the always great animation and sound design, the way the lighting and colors shift with the emotional beats of the review, and the gorgeous shot composition throughout. This clashing of arguably two of the most important characters in this series is equal parts fierce and beautiful thanks to the amazing direction and animation of this review. We may occasionally get low quality meme background faces when we're outside of the reviews, but damn it, we saved the budget for the good stuff. Sorry about that tangent. I am just in love with this episode and its review. But getting back to things, Hikari and Nana once again resume their fight, but this time, the dual-wielding Nana struggles against Hikari with her single weapon. Their battle continues and even splits the waves surrounding them apart, and Hikari successfully knocks Nana back, causing her to lose one of her swords. And in the final moments of this review, we learn the key difference in Hikari's weapon. It's a rope dagger. If there's a more elegant name for this kind of weapon, I don't know it and I'm sorry, so I'm just calling it a rope dagger. Swinging herself around Nana thanks to her rope dagger, Hikari closes out this review and recreate on a stunning note, as she strikes the button off Nana's jacket. And so, for the first time in the auditions, Nana is defeated. And it was inevitable when you think about it. How could the stage girl, constantly reliving the past and never growing out of fear of failure or pain, have any chance at winning against one who had already lost and gone through hardships of her own, and came out of them better and stronger than the person she was? As Nana's jacket falls to the ground, we transition to the fight between Karen and Claudine just in time to see Claudine's jacket fall down as well, Karen being the victor of their review battle. As the instrumentals slow down and close out, Hikari takes her position 0 stance, and the 6th day of auditions ends, with the two stage girls connected by fate both being the victor of their respective fights. Man, I love this episode so much. Just getting to explore Hikari's backstory prior to episode 1 on its own is good, but the way this episode brings everything up to this point full circle is amazing. Episode 7 was a deep dive into Nana's character with a revelation that recontextualized the show up to that point, with the introduction of Nana's time loop. And this episode further expands the scope of the show and its themes with the revelation brought forth through Hikari's backstory, that losing the auditions results in the loss of one's shine to power the creation of the top star. I've said many times up to this point that Revue Starlight is a series that shows not just the beauty of pursuing creative and artistic endeavors, but the hardships of it as well. And we've seen this through the individual reviews and the struggles of the characters that get resolved in them up to this point. But this ugly truth has always been lurking beneath it all. Because no matter how many friends you make or life lessons you learn along the path of achieving your dreams, your passion will turn into a competition if it hasn't already. And when that happens, you risk losing your love for what you do in an attempt to become the top star of your field. The way Revue Starlight manages to convey this through the reviews and top star system is amazing. It captures the passionate, beautiful spectacle of pursuing artistic endeavors such as theater, while still showing the unfortunate, harsh reality of pursuing your craft in real life. It manages to do this all while not drowning itself in cynicism or melancholy. The show doesn't want you to feel bad about pursuing what you love to do or dread the future, but it does want you to be prepared for what life has in store. And of course, this all begs the question, now that we know the truth about the top star system in the review auditions, a reflection of pursuing creative endeavors or just any passions or hobbies in real life, what does this series have to say next? Is there something we should do about it? Or is there no hope for change and we must simply accept the fate that awaits us? What does Revue Starlight have to say next? Well, things might have come pretty full circle in this episode, but the auditions aren't quite over yet and there are still 4 more episodes left to go. We'll have to see what message the Stage Girls of Saisho have for us in the following videos. Before this episode and video is completely over, however, there is a little bit left. In the aftermath of the Revue of Solitude, Nana and Hikari are both illuminated by spotlights, as Nana tells Hikari that the story of Starlight is a tragedy by nature of its very script, and that it must end in parting. This is worrisome considering that the story of Hikari and Karen up to this point has mirrored the story of Starlight itself. Two girls who meet and share a connection, a promise being made between the two, the promise forgotten by one, an eventual reunion, and, while this hasn't happened to Hikari and Karen yet, an eternal separation. Without the protection of her repeat performance, she asks Hikari if she can accept having to fight and part with Karen in these auditions. I love the tenderness of this scene. Nana isn't asking this with the usual bravado she displays during Revue battles, and this question isn't coming out of a place of malice. She's genuinely worried about Hikari and Karen. With how intense and ruthless Nana can seem to be during the auditions, it is great getting a reminder that all of her actions do come from a place of genuine care. Sure, they may stem from her own insecurities about the future and never getting to relive her shining stage that is the previous production of Starlight, but she does genuinely want to protect all of her friends and classmates from what she deems to be an unforgiving and cruel future. The background track reflects this too, with an eerie but soft vibe that makes Nana's genuine and heartfelt question stick out even more. Before Hikari can fully give an answer, however, the stage lights go out and the screen cuts to black. I love the final shot, with Hikari's remade dagger in the foreground, while the illuminated stage girls are a ways away in the background. It's such a somber note to end the episode on, Hikari's dagger being so far away as if all the confidence she had in her reborn shine and her promise with Karen has now left her side. The beautiful display and stage of this Revue, now a dark and desolate stage for this parting question by Nana. Once again, Revue Starlight manages to balance optimism and passion shown via breathtaking visuals in the Revues, with somber realism in these more low-key and quiet scenes. After the scene, Fly Me to the Star plays as usual, with Karen being the sole vocalist for this version of the ending. And it's Fly Me to the Star again, not much to say. I like the song and I really like Karen singing. While Karen is the one singing in this ending, the visuals actually focus on Hikari, which I think is another cool way of showing how connected the two are. Also, this is embarrassing considering I am 8 episodes into an entire series dedicated to analyzing the show, but I only noticed starting with the last episode that the background for each version of the ending is slightly different depending on the character visually being represented, and this ending is no different. I see that Mr. White plushie in the background.
Hey, Mr. White!
No, not that Mr. White. Never mind. After the ending song, there is a brief scene with the giraffe observing the Revue rankings. The giraffe takes note of Karen's quick ascension in the rankings, and as we get a close-up of Hikari and Karen's hairpins, he wonders if they are a destined pair, and so the episode ends. As always, thank you so much to everyone for watching this video. Sorry this one took a while to come out, with the last one being uploaded in October of last year. Around that time, I got a promotion at my job which requires more hours, which is great. Gotta make that monies to buy marketable Revue Starlight plushies after all. But I still had a couple months of my college program left, and one of my last assignments was to make a short film in relatively quick time. All this is to say, I didn't have a lot of free time towards the end of last year. The only reason I was able to upload the Summer at the Edge of the Universe and Chaos Head Noah videos is because the Summer at the Edge of the Universe video was shorter than my usual videos because it only covered the demo to that visual novel, and the Chaos Head Noah script was something I had already finished by early November, I want to say, so all I had to do was record the audio and send it over to Otaku Box. But I am now graduated, which 1 feels amazing, and 2 means I have a little more free time going forward to work on videos. I don't want to promise anything because obviously stuff happens, but I feel confident that the episode 9 video won't take as long to come out as this one did. Here's hoping for a fun and Revue Starlight filled 2024. Now this is the part of the script where I put, now if that damn visual novel could just come out ... but actually, as of recording this video, we got the opening to the visual novel, which is amazing, by the way. I need the full song stat. But we also have a new release date of August this year, and the knowledge that it will have an English translation. So in other words, we won, Revue Starlight fans. Please tell me down below in the comments of this video what you thought of my analysis or interpretation of episode 8 of Revue Starlight. Is there anything I missed? Anything you disagree with? Or anything I mentioned in this video that you want to expand upon? I think it's quite clear by now that I love talking about this series, and this episode in particular has so much to go into. Its parallels to episode 1, how Hikari and Karen's story mirrors that of Starlight, the clashing of ideologies between Hikari and Nana and the Revue of Solitude, and more. I love talking about Revue Starlight, and I look forward to hopefully discussing this episode in the comments with everyone. I'd especially love to hear your thoughts on my interpretation of the auditions and what losing one's shine means, how that reflects what it's like to pursue creative and artistic endeavors in real life. I know if I took the real-life Takarazuka Revue into factor, there's another layer to this aspect of Revue Starlight's story. But as I said at the beginning of this video series, I want to be able to discuss how this series can be viewed without prior research or knowledge. Because to be able to speak to audiences on different levels is the mark of a good story, and I think Revue Starlight does that wonderfully with its story of lost passion when what you love to do is turned into a job or competition. And before truly wrapping things up in this video, thanks as usual to the wonderful editor of this video, OtakuBox. A link to his channel can be found in the description, and I highly recommend checking out some of the cool content he has to offer on his channel. Thank you to everyone for watching these videos. Please consider subscribing if you want to see more Revue Starlight and visual novel content from me. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed for your continued support of this channel. Go listen to the Revue Starlight visual novel opening if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video.